strong wage growth creates a dilemma for the Bank of England's interest rate strategy. For a fleeting moment, it appeared that the Bank of England, BOE, was on the brink of implementing interest rate cuts, potentially at an accelerated pace. However, newly released data on robust wage growth have thrown a wrench into that expectation, at least in the near term. Policymakers at the BOE are now faced with a dilemma: maintaining high interest rates for longer to curb inflationary pressures or risking an economic slowdown by tightening financial conditions even further. Did you know that 99% of viewers watch but aren't subscribed? If you enjoy the content, consider subscribing. It really helps the channel grow and you won't miss any updates. Thank you. The relationship between wage growth and inflation is a crucial concern for central bankers. When wages rise persistently, businesses often pass on these increased labor costs to consumers through higher prices, fueling inflation. Given that energy prices are also poised to push overall inflation higher this year, the BOE finds itself in a delicate balancing act. The latest figures suggest that only 1 or 2 modest quarter-point interest rate reductions might be possible without igniting a resurgence in inflation. As with all economic indicators, the Office for National Statistics (ONS) data on employment and wages come with a degree of uncertainty. MPs have recently expressed concerns about the reliability of ONS figures, particularly given the decline in survey respondents. Nevertheless, these figures remain the best available estimates, and they paint a picture of accelerating wage growth. Annual wage increases, including bonuses, surged to 6% in December, up from 5.5% in November, exceeding the expected 5.9% growth predicted by Citi analysts. Though this difference may seem minor, the upward trajectory signals stronger than anticipated inflationary pressures. Interestingly, the BOE had already anticipated some acceleration in wage growth, forecasting an average 6.3% increase in the fourth quarter. However, data from HM Revenue and Customs, HMRC, indicate that wage growth eased slightly between November and January, dipping from 6.6% to 5.9%. This discrepancy highlights the difficulty in accurately predicting labor market dynamics and further complicates the BOE's decision-making process. Another crucial component of this equation is the state of the labor market. The latest data reveal that the unemployment rate remained steady at 4.4% in December, while job vacancies declined only marginally. This suggests that, while there are some signs of a cooling labor market, the changes are not dramatic enough to warrant aggressive rate cuts. According to the consultancy firm Capital Economics, the data offer little indication that the BOE will shift away from its cautious and gradual approach to monetary easing. For Chancellor Rachel Reeves, these wage growth figures could be seen as validation that the pessimism surrounding her budget was overblown. The labor market was already experiencing a mild slowdown before the budget announcement in October and has continued this trend, albeit at a very measured pace. Some struggling retailers have blamed recent tax increases for their financial woes. However, a closer look suggests that poor management decisions rather than fiscal policy may be the primary culprit in certain cases. The Chancellor will need to navigate these narratives carefully, resisting pressure from industry lobbyists while focusing on broader economic stability. A closer examination of the wage growth data reveals a stark divide between the private and public sectors. Private sector wages rose by 6.2%, while public sector wages increased by only 4.7%. This discrepancy raises important questions about sustainability. The sectors driving the strongest wage increases, hospitality, retail and construction, are also among those most vocal in their opposition to the upcoming rise in employer national insurance contributions in April. How, then, are these businesses managing to fund such wage hikes while simultaneously claiming that additional costs would be unsustainable? The British Chambers of Commerce provides one possible answer. Businesses are facing severe labour shortages and are being forced to compete aggressively for workers. According to a recent survey, nearly 4/5, 79% of businesses report difficulty in finding staff to fill roles. Simultaneously, 3/4 of businesses cite labour costs as the most significant pressure driving them to increase prices. This tight labour market dynamic underscores the persistent challenge facing policymakers. Ultimately, tackling the root causes of labour shortages will be essential to achieving a sustainable economic equilibrium. The government must prioritise improving workforce skills and encouraging greater workforce participation. If labour shortages persist, wages will remain elevated, keeping inflationary pressures high and preventing significant interest rate cuts. A long-term strategy focused on education, training, and incentives for workers to re-enter the labour market is critical. The BOE's path forward remains fraught with challenges. On the one hand, persistent wage growth suggests that inflationary pressures are not yet fully under control, necessitating a cautious approach to rate cuts. On the other hand, maintaining high interest rates for too long could stifle economic growth and push more businesses and households into financial distress. With the labour market still tight, but showing subtle signs of easing, the BOE's gradualist strategy appears to be the most prudent course of action for now. In the coming months, all eyes will be on further wage and employment data to determine whether this high-wage, high-inflation environment persists, or whether the long-awaited soft landing for the UK economy is finally within reach.